This video is brought to you by Storyblocks.
What's going on, guys? This is Sam, and today I want to show you how to take better photos and shoot better videos on the iPhone you already own. When I initially thought about making this video, I thought about doing it for like DSLRs or really high-end cameras, the stuff that I usually shoot on, but I realized those are really expensive and not a lot of you guys own those. So I want to start with the iPhone because there's a lot of things that you might not be doing already that can really step up your photo and video game. So let's go ahead and jump in. One of the first things that I always think about before I snap a photo or take some video is lighting and exposure. That's one of the most important things that you've probably heard before if you've started to get into this stuff. But for example, if you take a look at these statues here behind me, you notice that we got the building, which is going to reflect some light, and then the sky, which is super bright in general. So if we go ahead and try to take this photo right here, I've got my phone. There's not a lot of detail when I snap this photo of these three statues or pieces of art, just because all the light is coming in from the sky in the background. However, if we go ahead and rotate around to this direction, there's a tree behind us, which is going to provide a lot of shade. So if we take the same photo, line it up here, there's so much more detail on these same three statues from this angle because the tree is blocking out most of the light that was making it super overexposed in that last shot. Another really important thing to think about when it comes to exposure is knowing when the phone got something right and when it got it completely wrong. Because this isn't the most high-end camera that you'll probably ever use, it's just one built into a really expensive phone, you sometimes have to adjust it manually. And luckily the default camera app gives you the option to do that. So if we scoot up to my good friend Rusty, the Rusty Pole here, if you tap and hold and then start swiping down on the image, you can really bring the exposure down, and the brightest images or the brightest object, which in this case is the sky, is going to have the most detail and brightness left in it. But if you bring the exposure up, you're going to lose detail and it will brighten the image up. You can see that the pole and everything else is getting super bright, but at the same time you're not going to get the right results unless you bring it down to something more natural. A little bit darker in this image might be the best option, or bringing it down even more shows you some more detail. So if the phone does get it wrong, you have the option to change it manually, and you can end up getting some better shots than what the phone thought might have been the best. After lighting and exposure, another really big part of making sure your image looks great is where the focus is set. So I want to use this half tree bush plant here to show you what I mean. If we get up really close here, the phone is going to autofocus on what it thinks looks best. But sometimes because of the way the iPhone works, it's not always going to get it right. Maybe I'm trying to capture the building in the background. So if I tap in the back, it's going to automatically refocus there, but let's say I want to make sure it's consistently focusing on that and nothing else. I'm going to tap and hold, and you're going to get this little message at the very top that says AE/AF lock, basically meaning that the autofocus is locked on the back. So even if I get up really close right here, no matter what, it's going to stay focused on that object in the background. So if you want a different looking photo where maybe the object in the exact center isn't going to focus, you might want to try the autofocus lock functionality to get a little bit of a different image. Now sometimes no matter how hard you try, you're just in an area where the lighting isn't right, but you really need to get an image for a project, and the best place to go for that is going to be Storyblocks.com. They were kind enough to sponsor this video and make it possible.
Storyblocks has all the stock images that you could possibly imagine, including high quality photos, vectors, icons, and more. You can download anything from the 400,000 images in their membership library and save 60% of marketplace content that isn't included in that membership. Pretty much anything that you could possibly think of is available in royalty-free form through Storyblocks. They have so many really cool vectors. The favorite one that I just discovered is that under illustrations, they have all these cool patterns and backgrounds. I can't wait to take a closer look at those. But there's also just tons of other photos of anything, nature and wildlife, holidays, buildings, and landmarks. They'll have something on here that you are looking for. We're giving away 7 days free so you guys can try it out for yourself and access a massive variety of high-res photos and vectors. So if you want to check that out, make sure you visit that link down below in the description.
One of the biggest mistakes that I see people consistently make when they're recording video and taking photos on their phone is rather than getting closer to an object, they pinch to zoom. And while it seems really convenient at the time, when you pinch to zoom on the iPhone, let me show you right here, we've got some leaves in the background, you're literally just blowing up the image. If you use this slider, you're making the image bigger, and you can already see there's a lot of grain and fuzz because all you're doing is blowing it up. You're not actually using the optical zoom here. If you have something like an iPhone 7 Plus or even an iPhone 8 Plus or the iPhone 10, you have a second lens, and you can tap on the 2x button to do some optical zoom to keep that clear image. So the best thing to do if you don't have one of those dual lens camera phones, just scoot up to the image, get a little bit closer to the leaves, because rather than distorting the quality, you're getting up closer and you still get a really good image. So far we've taken some photos and videos of some still objects. We don't always have that luxury. Sometimes we need to capture a moving object, and the best way to do that, rather than just repeatedly tapping on the shutter button, is to use something called shutter mode on the iPhone. So if you take a look at this, I want to move up to these leaves right here, and they're moving ever so slightly, so it's not a huge deal, but maybe the wind will pick up. What you can do is you can just tap and hold on this, and you'll see a little number at the very bottom of the screen. It just keeps going up. I believe you can shoot 999 before it stops, and the luxury that you get when you use shutter mode, you can see the leaves are starting to move, is you have the option to view these images and pick the best one in post. So I can tap on this. Down here at the bottom, you can see that you've got a new option called select. If you go to a normal photo, you don't have that, but because we took so many, we now get the option to select the best photo. We can swipe through here, and you can see the movement as we go forward or backward in time when we took these photos, and then select the best ones. What's really great about burst mode is that you have the option to go back in post and select the best photo rather than just trying to snap one and hope that it turned out well. One of the biggest problems that people have had in the past with taking pictures and videos on their phone is that it runs out of space really quickly if you have something like a 32 gigabyte or 16 gigabyte phone. So in iOS 11, Apple added a new option under the camera settings that is now the default called high efficiency versus most compatible. And what that does is it changes the format that these photos and videos are captured in, and it actually reduces the quality. So if you are tight on space on your phone, you're going to want to use the high efficiency option because you'll be able to capture more photos and more video. But if you want the best detail in those photos and in that video, you want to go to most compatible, because I actually looked at it on the computer and that was about 0.4 megabytes less than the most compatible option, which had higher quality. So if you want the best quality, make sure that you're using most compatible rather than high efficiency, and you can change that in the camera preference panel in the settings app. One last tip that I want to share with all of you is to use depth of field when you're shooting video. When I shoot a lot of my videos, this is what I would call my signature effect, and it's where you've got the phone or the object in the middle or somewhere in the frame, and it's really in focus, and everything else is super blurry. I love this look. I use it in most of my videos. Whenever I'm doing an iOS update video or a video about a phone in general, I always love how it looks when you get an object super close to the camera and everything else in the background looks blurry. That is my final tip for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, as always, feel free to drop a like down below. It would really help me out. And of course, hit subscribe for more videos on the iPhone in the future. I've been Sam. I hope all of you are doing great, and I'll talk to you in my next video.